Welcome to Stew and Nunn, an online show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and self-service. We are here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter.
Stand next to me, you'll never stand alone. I'm last to leave, but the first to go. Lord, make me dead before you make me whole. I feed on the fear of the devil inside of the enemy faces in my sight. Aim with a hand, shoot with a mind, kill with a heart like Arctic ice. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. The blood spilled on the floor, and if another one stands, I'll kill some more. Bullet in the breech and a fire in me, like a cigarette thrown to gasoline. If death don't bring you fear, I swear you'll fear these marching feet. Come to the nightmare, come to me, deep down in the dark where the devil be. In the mall where the jaws and the razor teeth, where the brimstone burns and the angel weeps. Crawl to the gods of across your path, and my silhouette hangs like a body bag. Hope is a moment now long past. The shadow of death is the one I cast. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
We're not just going to shoot the bastard. We're going to cut out their living guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. We're going to murder those lousy bastards by the bushel.
Now I live lean and I mean to inflict the grief, and the least of me is still out of your reach. The killer machine's gonna do the deed until the river runs dry and my last breath leaves. Chin in the air with a head held high, I'll stand in the path of the enemy line. Feel no fear, know my pride. For God and country, I'll end your life. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
All right, now you sons of bitches. You know how I feel.
All right, everyone. I had to let that one play all the way through. Now that is some walk-on music for our guest tonight, John the Wolf Wagner. Hello, Toby. Hello, John. How you guys doing tonight?
Good evening, man. Welcome. Glad to be here.
Yeah, you say welcome. We're just going to make you a regular. You welcome me to our show. You've been on
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Twice in 5 weeks. What's up, Toby?
Well, man, I'm just catching my breath, because I just thought of all the things that you cannot say out loud in that song that makes me want to celebrate that song. Like, we're going to take their guts and use them for the lubricant of our track tread. Like,
famous.
Can you imagine it? Like, Secretary Austin making any statement about like how we're going to treat somebody. It's like, well, first we're going to go over there. We're going to hug them. We're going to find out why they're socially and economically depressed. And then we're going to build them up. We used to have like real leaders. Patton might've been a little bit crazy. He might've had a weird mom complex and wrote some pretty dark poetry. But in the end, like, he didn't go to a fight to make friends. He went there to make fertilizer. Bless his heart. God bless America and leaders like Patton. And that's why we won.
He would have got canceled faster than McChrystal hanging out with Rolling Stone.
You know who, like, this, I'm surprised. Let's just jump right into cancel culture. Everyone welcome John. Everyone knows who John is, the wolf. But let's just hit cancel culture real fast while we're talking about military leaders. Like, did anyone forget about Uncle Russ lifting like Katie Couric into the MTV like in New Orleans after after Katrina, and like calling her little lady and like don't worry your pretty little face and stuff like that. Like
Nobody said nothing back then. Yeah.
Like no one said nothing. Now like Uncle Russ is like the sobering voice of America's conscience.
Hate tweeting, just hate tweeting and trolling on conservatives on Twitter. That's what he's turned into. He went from "don't get stuck on stupid" to "holy shit, I'm stuck at 140 characters."
And like, hey, little lady, don't worry your pretty little face about that. The Army's got this under control.
Yeah, DOD tried to cancel Tucker Carlson this past week, and that just didn't fly. I don't think DOD trying to cancel culture anybody is ever going to work.
No. But hey, before we get too much into it, I do want to recognize our sponsors. Last week we had such a great show. We went almost 2 hours with Omar Hardaway. I don't think we mentioned our sponsors much, but I want to definitely recognize, obviously, Veteran Outdoors, Commodity Development Guy. Now I see you got that fine looking Commodity shirt on. I almost went with the Commodity shirt too, but I did go with one of my favorite Enlisted Nines, a personal gift from you. Love that one. Of course, Enlisted Nine Fight Company, boohammer.com, Gear for Grunts, all of our great folks that support us. Alpha Elite Performance, nothing but great sponsors and friends of the show. I want to make sure we recognize them. And again, I want to welcome you back, John, for twice in 5 weeks. Obviously, you're super excited, and this is the highlight of your week, or you really had nothing else going on a Thursday night and just said, I guess I'll go sit and talk to you.
Yeah, I like your audience, and I like the banner, and I like to be on here, so it's always good.
There we go. Well,
that's what we like to hear.
That's it. And awesome. Well, so we'll get right into it. There's a lot of things going on. We have a week from tonight is the president's first primetime speech, if it still happens. Supposedly he's going to be live. We'll see. I don't know if there's going to be some microphone mix-ups there. We'll talk about that later. So I don't know. We're going to talk about it, everyone. We haven't I don't know if a lot of people are going to want to tune into that. I'm assuming it's going to be 8 o'clock because it seems like every time through the political season, something always happened during this show. So I don't know if we're going to maybe postpone this a little bit and do an after the show speech show. Maybe we'll do it during, but I'm assuming there'll be a lot of fodder next week.
Have they announced what time it's going to be? Is it going to be during the day? Is it going to be the evening? What is it going to be?
It's probably going to. It's going to be actually.
It's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
Oh, I think you're right.
5 o'clock Eastern.
It's probably going to
be early.
It's probably going to be for the senior citizen discount dinner time. Yes, I think it's going to be. They like to hit the buffet around 4. Right, and get in and out. So, but I think you're right. I think it is during the middle of the day. Now that you mention it.
Yeah, word on the street is like he doesn't have anything scheduled like after 6 o'clock at night ever. Well, and he retires early. Like, hey, that, as Bobby Brown would say, like that's your prerogative. But the
isn't there a thing about the old? I see what you did there. Isn't there a thing about the whole getting a call at 3 a.m? I mean, maybe he'll be up. Maybe he's up at 3 a.m. Maybe he's already up.
But he doesn't have to take that call.
Oh.
Kamala that. She's probably already doing something else, so she'll take that call.
President Harris takes that call.
President Harris takes that call. It just redirects over to the to her house, and then
they're like, please hold. The White House operator's like, we'll ring it, but it automatically redirects. Kind of like like you can direct one phone line to another phone line. Maybe that's like how all his calls.
Maybe they have one of those party lines, like back in the country, a long time back in the in the 70s and 60s, that when the rural areas, a whole neighborhood shared one phone line, right? If you can remember that,
party line.
Right? Like party line.
We had one.
Yeah, okay.
We had one.
But you're pretty rural up there in Canada. I'm surprised you guys had phones. But, maybe
we didn't have very long, and then we got our own.
Maybe it rings both, and she just picks up sooner because he's pretty much knocked out, right? I don't know, but anyways, so. So John, we haven't talked to you about 5 weeks. A lot of things are happening. We were chatting earlier today, like what we're going to talk about tonight. Is like we probably just see how the day progresses, and that's usually how we do in the show. And usually stuff pops up. But is there anything right up front that you want to kind of talk about? Want to get our opinion on? Give your opinion to our viewers and listeners about what's going on right now?
Yeah, again, Dr. Fauci was in the news again today as Congress faced off with him and the good senator, I guess from Kentucky there, that stood up to him and said, you're lying, you're doing the double masking for show, etc. I worked with Dr. Fauci. I've met him several times. He's an amicable guy. But I think, what's he, 82, 83 years old now? He's been doing this
He's
since
that old?
his late 40s. Yeah, he's old. And he's finally in the limelight. He's been a government functionary for a long time. I think this is finally getting to him. I don't think he's able to keep up with exactly what he said one time versus the next time. I think it's finally getting there. It's just sad the way he's led us around over the last year. I think he's a better person than that. I think he's really been hurt by his politics and who he's really trying to follow.
Interesting you say that. Yeah. Go ahead, Toby.
Well, thank you for sharing that little tidbit of context there, John, because I'll be honest with you. I didn't think he was that old. If I was to guess, I was going to put him in his mid to late 60s. So whatever regimen he's on, he must be having those like vegetables, in the capsules, the no preservative type, getting his fruits and vegetables, because he's aging exceptionally well. The oil of Olay account that his wife has had for him has obviously, served him, exceptionally well. But the exchange between him and the distinguished gentleman from Kentucky, Senator Paul, today, also a doctor. Just want to make sure people don't forget that, even though he doesn't throw that term around. He doesn't make
not
people
as much as the first lady does. That's for sure.
Yeah, most people don't even realize that he's actually a doctor. Everyone just assumes that he's something else. But there's a scene like in the movie Boondock Saints, where Willem Dafoe is describing the scene. He throws his hands up there was a firefight, and that's kind of how I felt like that went down, because he straight up with his words, as we like to tell our children how to communicate, with his words completely defeated Dr. Fauci's position, and with science laid out, here are the studies, and it's proven that post-infection reinfection doesn't happen. So if you're immune and then you've also been vaccinated, which gives you immunity, why do you have to wear a mask? And then called out, not just one mask but the two masks, called out that it's purely theatrics. And
was he on there with anybody else today? Was Dr. Fauci there appearing with any of the other
no,
which is unusual. What I don't understand is as of late, they've not had anybody but him. There hasn't been the CDC head, the NIH head, anybody from FDA. You haven't seen or heard from these guys at all. It's all been Fauci. Nothing but wall-to-wall Fauci if we're going to be talking about COVID-19. And he has the least. He has one of the least amount of responsibility for all of it compared to the sum of all the others and what they've got going on. So they ought to be calling some of those people in and getting them to answer. Not that Dr. Marks couldn't. I find Dr. Marks a good guy and at the FDA, and one of the few that I'd like to listen to. But I'd like to find some more of those guys out there, not just Fauci.
But I think Senator Paul has a very valid question, and he's asking the guy that's supposed to be the voice, the subject matter expert, and the person that's kind of creating this policy and guiding the policy for the country, that if there's no science and there's no proof to show that once immunized or once you've experienced the infection of the virus and you've gone past it and you have the antibodies, that there's a reoccurrence. And if there's no science, there's no proof that that's a thing, why are we wearing masks if you haven't had that opportunity? Now, if you haven't been infected yet and you haven't been vaccinated, of course wear masks. But if you're wearing masks after that, you're not stopping, you're not spreading it, and you're not catching it. He used the words theatrics. I think that was aptly used. But the guy that's dictating and promoting the policy and that we're all listening to, when confronted with that information, all he had to say was, I disagree. And we shouldn't be making policy based off of personal political positions.
And what's good about that, a lot of times in Congress when you've had, for example, AOC question someone about finance and budget, right? And that was just like, what? It wouldn't matter if you're elected or not. You should not even be on this committee. You've had many people who don't know their butt from anything about what they're talking about. But like you said, Dr. Rand Paul is not a doctor of psychology. He's not a doctor of education. He's a true, legit, like work on you doctor. So who else better than? I mean, it's the same thing as the Judiciary Committee. You have Ted Cruz and many others who are lifelong lawyers, are validated in asking judicial questions. So you got really Dr. Rand Paul asking questions. It's legit. It's not just someone up there pontificating about what they think, and he's asking questions based on science, which he's an expert in. And Dr. Fauci was just like, I don't agree with you. I don't feel that way. It's not about how you feel. It's science. Right. And as a doctor, his answer should be based on science. It should be, oh, let me show you this whiteboard or have this, thing here talking about stats and all that kind of stuff. It was, I don't agree with you. Not a good way to be presented.
I think the other things that were coming out today was more studies or more mentions being made in some of the media that actually 3-foot distance now, they're saying, was going to be adequate, which is something that was already medically acceptable. The 6-foot rule really wasn't anything that was scientifically proven.
Yep.
They don't know how we got off on that. I remember early on, they had the studies and the example shown about how the aisles in the supermarket, are they far enough apart, et cetera, et cetera. But again, they mentioned even back then, 3 foot should be adequate in a well-ventilated room and not in a closed room. As most supermarkets and stores and everything are. The mask thing was, even from early days, quite a while, we don't really need to do the mask. Why are we discussing all this? And that's why the President, Trump, did make it a mandatory thing. He couldn't find somebody that could definitively point to the science and say, absolutely, we've got to wear the mask, no exception. He could never find somebody who would say that.
It's funny you mentioned the distancing, right? They did just come out and they're doing it in the light of schools, saying, well, they don't really need 6 feet, and there's no science. And I thought the science was kind of disproven. I'm surprised it didn't change last fall when DOD did a number of studies on aircraft and airplanes, and they set up all the dummies and all the sensors, and they found out that you had a 0.007% chance of getting the virus on a plane due to the filters and the amount of air change out and fresh air coming in on a flight. Obviously, when you're sitting in a plane, someone is, even if you have an empty seat between you, you're not even 3 feet away, right? And the people behind in front of you, and people are flying all over this country, and you don't have to have a mask on when you're eating and drinking. I heard of no planes being super spreaders or outbreaks or anything. I thought I've not heard whether they're coming out of Florida, coming out of New York, coming out of Texas, with one exception, and that would be the flights coming back from China on the early days when they were looking at, and they canceled all the flights coming in from China and Europe and those kind of places because they still had a feeling that there was no mask of any kind or requirement for any covering, and that's why they stopped those flights. They also didn't want to be bringing them in. They didn't have the filters that they have now, right? They've changed out all the filters on the planes now. They're more the higher end HEPA filters and stuff. So those flights didn't have. They just had standard air handling. So the flights, when I understand, the planes now are actively doing air exchanging every few minutes on the flight. They have higher end filters and all that stuff. So yeah, back then you had 300 people on a flight that were probably mostly virus carriers coming over. It made sense why they canceled those. But since we put these protocols in place, there's not been any, and we were well within 6 feet.
I think we're gonna finally get some more. Not that don't have open borders now. I think the flights from Europe and some other places are going to start opening up. I'm having some technical difficulties here, guys, and I'm trying to realign my lighting. The batteries are fading, so I apologize for that.
No problem.
Yeah, you're
I think
good.
We're back. I think we're back up now.
One of the reasons why I kind of wanted to touch on this is because when you make statements. So I remember a couple of years ago, and when I say a couple, I mean way back. There was this guy named Barry Bonds, and Barry Bonds had to sit in front of like a congressional panel. Some will call it a committee, and he had to testify and provide some information towards the distinguished members of Congress about his involvement in the usage of performance-enhancing drugs and his involvement in the procurement and the distribution of performance-enhancing drugs in a little sport. I think we call it America's pastime. I think it's called baseball. And they wanted to put him in jail because they believed that he misspoke to Congress. And this was such a big deal. Like, I can't believe someone would knowingly mislead or lie to Congress. In the past 4 or 5 years, 6 or 7 actually, we have seen a complete lack of truth being shared with Congress. And I like when Dr. Fauci makes comments like, well, I just disagree. Even though he has no factual, people take that as the Bible. They're like, well, Dr. Fauci disagrees, so like that can't be true. Even though the person that was speaking, doesn't even matter what side of the aisle it is, doesn't matter. The person beforehand just used, cohesive sentences, words, brought out studies, laid out the information, had a good point, and just asked a question. That wasn't grandstanding on Senator Paul's part. He got fired up near the end and it kind of got heated, but when he laid that all out, he was asking questions to the subject matter expert on behalf of the people of the United States of America, regardless of party affiliation, because he represents everyone in his district. And when he's on committee, he represents everyone in the country, regardless of if they voted for him or not. And he was just simply doing his job to ask the right questions. And he did it very professionally, very appropriately, very well thought out and intelligently. Now, when someone just gives dismissive, like, well, I disagree, that paves the way for people like, I don't know, Dr. Fauci's boss to like call anyone that disagrees with Dr. Fauci's, ideology on it, a Neanderthal. Now, he didn't just call the people of Texas Neanderthals. Now, obviously, that was like the insinuation that he was making a dig. And I'm talking about President Biden taking a dig at the governors of Texas and the governor of Mississippi and throwing a little shot like this kind of Neanderthal thinking. Well, people took that as a party line and they took it as a partisan, situation. But I got to tell you, there's a lot of Democrats that are tired of wearing masks. There's a lot of Democrats that don't understand. And then they're like, oh, well, I guess we really do need to wear the mask because Dr. Fauci disagrees. So I guess these guys really are Neanderthals. And like, we're doing a disservice to the American people when we lie to the representation of the American people. And we're doing a disservice when we don't call it out. If we're willing to put Barry Bonds in prison over some PEDs, we sure as hell should be willing to at least like hold somebody in contempt, that is misleading the American public over something as important as like the coronavirus. But here we're like, it's being dismissed. They're like, well, I just disagree. Well, you can't disagree with facts unless you have facts that counter and you have a counterpoint, and then you use your words. Starts back here and it kind of flows and and then you defend your position.
John, I'm sorry, go ahead, Toby.
Like this kind of like I'm not even pissed that like he wants people to wear masks for 2 years. I'm pissed that a guy can claim that he's a subject matter expert, gets slapped in the face with facts that he's supposed to be the subject matter expert of, and all he's got is, well, I disagree, and he can't defend his position. And you've heard me say it 100 times on here. If you can't defend your position with words, you don't have a position.
Yeah. John, you've known him. You've talked about it. You know him better than Toby and I, obviously. I mean, has he been this way, or do you see this as a transition that Fauci has went into in the last few months?
This is a transition he's gone into since last March. I think the attention that he's been able to garner, the amount of celebrity that he's garnered from this, I think it's gone a little bit to his head. A lady that I worked with when I was at the VA, wonderful, wonderful lady over there. She used to work for Dr. Fauci. She was their au pair or watched the kids or whatever back in the day. This is many, many, many years ago, when their kids were growing up. And she said he was a very, very hardworking individual, both he and his wife, nonstop. And that's why, they brought her in and hired her to do that for a long time. But she said she, to this day, cannot understand, watching him now, what has happened since March. She said, this is not the Dr. Fauci I worked for and lived in his house for years. This is not the man that I knew. She said, this does not measure up. Something is up here.
Well, like anyone that, gets thrown into fame and celebrity, right? Some people get drunk on their own celebrity and they just, kind of lose ground of where they're look at Toby. I mean, a documentary came out and it was, man, that hat used to have to open up like all the way before now we've got it closed back to normal. But no, so let's talk. I want to talk about something else. I want to pivot a little bit. So they confirmed the HHS director today. Xavier, a gentleman who is a trial lawyer, has no medical experience, no healthcare experience. Kind of sounds a lot like the head of the VA.
I was just going to go there.
Right. So we have two now. In the middle of a pandemic, and Senator Cruz today got on the Senate floor, was talking about this, and he called this out, and it's absolutely legit. It wouldn't matter who said it. Just like the head of the VA, someone that has no medical experience or healthcare experience at all, you have now the head of the HHS who has no medical or healthcare experience. And it's not just, well, we're just kind of cruising along. We're in the middle. We're going into year 2 of a pandemic of this whole world, much less this country, that has affected us, honestly, and I don't think anyone could argue this, that has affected the world more than Pearl Harbor, more than 9/11, more than any event that any of us have ever lived through or known about in our history. There's nothing I think we can imagine, short of the Big Bang itself, has affected this world like this pandemic has. And two of our most of our, I would say, 4 or 5 most important agencies, right? CDC, FDA, HHS, VA, all these big healthcare focused agencies. And 2 of them are now headed by people that have no healthcare experience. How does that make how is nobody calling out the administration? And how are even their own Democrats that are on these approval committees not looking at it going, is this the best choice? It astounds me.
It doesn't, and this administration has no effect if you have no expertise whatsoever. Look at Buttigieg over at transportation. You mentioned Magano over to VA. Now Xavier up at HHS and others. They're not looking for, who's got the best fit and the most experience, who is at the top of their career field, and can come in here and run an agency with some dignity. They're not looking for that. They're looking for the policy wonk that is going to follow the party line, who's willing to echo what they want to say out there and the control that they want to put forth. You're going to watch, you're going to see, this is a warm up. This is just a warm up for what we're going to see coming in the next couple of years when we start talking about climate change and how they're going to be enacting a lot of things that are going to affect us with those policies. So I think they're taking notes. I think they're looking at this as just, here's how we can go in and affect our climate change policies very soon as they can move on from this pandemic.
What do you got, Toby?
So, man, I got a name for you. And the name I got for you guys is Betsy DeVos, the former Secretary of Education. I've never seen a woman dragged through the mud professionally and personally like Betsy DeVos. And they dragged her through the mud and they talked crap. And they if we're talking about the war on women, well, she was objective number 3. They were trying to drop nukes on her because she didn't have as much public school experience because the majority of her time in education was on the private side of education. And how could she possibly understand education at all because she hadn't experienced it in a public way? And her experience wasn't of value.
In other words, she had no union. She had never been a member of the teachers union. So therefore she had no experience to qualify her.
But they went after her.
Yeah, you're right. They did. I forgot about that.
They went after her. And they went after her because they just didn't like her experience. But they have been completely silent on, Becerra, McDonough, and here are like HHS is super important right now. The VA is always important, but they have silence, no commentary whatsoever, no pushback. Just like, the guy said this is the guy or this is the gal, so and
that third arm of the government, which has been absent since 2008, right? That third arm of the government, which is supposed to keep the executive branch in check, has vaporized this is, and I don't mean to make this partisan, but it's reality. It's because it wasn't this way into Trump because a lot of the Republicans fought him, but that's okay. That was the purpose of it, but it has vaporized.
Well, he hired a lot of his political foes.
He did hire many.
Look at, so like, there was like that brain surgeon guy that he put in front of HUD, and people could say, well, he wasn't a housing expert, he's a neurosurgeon. So like, how could he, be, other than the fact that he was born and raised in the projects and, understands the culture of the projects and understands, but like, political adversary, DOE, the Department of Energy, kind of a big deal in the United States, put Rick Perry, political adversary. Like when you look at who he put into positions, he didn't like pat it with his buddies.
No. Like, the ones he did,
he looked at
were
who
his family
he thought
members,
was like,
were his family members who didn't take a paycheck, right? And he didn't put them in cabinet positions, which have senior, ranking and authority, right? They were advisors to him on whatever. But that third arm of the government was gone in the Obama years, and it's gone now. And it's to keep in check. You put someone in front of a committee. That committee, regardless of party, regardless of the letter after their name at the bottom of the screen, should be questioning every candidate coming up there to represent that cabinet spot. It is a significant spot. But you're right. They just go, oh, this is who Uncle Joe or Kamala or Chief of Staff wants. Boom. Right.
And then anyone that asks like hard questions, like I'm not even going to talk about the budgeting lady, miss, like I had to delete over 1,000 tweets. Like you didn't get your job because like you suck at social media. And life, but we're not like even pushing back on some of these people at all, like hardly at all. And, you might get, someone like Senator Cruz or, someone that Cotton or, somebody that'll like bring something up and kind of hold them. But in the end, it's like,
this is a two-edged sword here. And one of the edges is this. They've always held to the simple fact that the president should be able to pick his own cabinet. They've always pushed that out, saying he should pick who he wants to trust and who wants to put in there. So if we push back hard against these picks like this, then if another Republican wins or when another Republican wins, what happens when they want to put some people that might be bright but maybe, aren't directly affiliated with that cabinet position into those positions? Maybe a lawyer in running Treasury or something like that instead of, a finance guy. I will say that I don't think anybody really wants to step up and put somebody who doesn't have some kind of experience at the head of DOD. I'm waiting for that one to happen.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, like his pick right now is just spectacular.
Yeah. Well, I want to go take that back about 30 seconds, Wolf. I mean, what'll happen, right? We see the same thing from Lindsey Graham said during the Kavanaugh hearings, right? When he just had that outburst and said, you're going to rue the day when this happens and you and the Democrats are in charge and they put up a Supreme Court candidate. Like, we're not going to forget this. Now, to answer your question, one of two things are going to happen. Either we aren't going to forget, the Republicans are not going to forget it, and they're going to toe the same line, right? And not necessarily vote on someone because they're good or bad, but because a Democrat put them up and they're just going to vote against them, right? Or they're going to take the high road and say, you know what? They are a good person. Their quality and all that stuff, regardless of who nominated them, and they're really the best fit for the job. And we're not gonna stoop to that level. The problem is, a majority of the new Republican base, what our good friend Jim Hansen likes to say is the MAGA party, right, doesn't want to take the high road anymore. They felt like the Republicans are, the McCain, the Grahams, the McConnell Republicans of past are, they've always taken a high road and they've always cowered and they've always given in, and they're sick and tired of it. So where does that leave us as a country? it makes me think, unless one side gets a vast majority over the other, we're going to keep riding the same down the middle of the party line without a whole bunch of compromise, right? And not picking people based on their merits, right? And not picking them on the color of their skin, but picking them on the letter after their name.
Yeah, I mean, I really, like, John, thanks for reminding me of, the executive branch should be able to decide who's in the executive branch. It's good to be reminded of that. But you should be, the executive branch should be able to pick who's in the executive branch if they have the qualifications to be there. Like, that.
Well, that's up to the senators to step up and say, you know what, you put the wrong guy at this, go give us, choice B. Who is your choice B?
And because here's a really interesting phenomenon that happens within the National Guard. The National Guards, each state, belong to the governor, the executive branch of that state. They don't actually belong to the president of the United States. While they're affiliated with DOD, their actual ownership is to the state that funds them, right? And the TAG, the adjutant general, the person that runs, the military department for the state of, is a political appointee. The governor can decide that, back in the day when I was, when I was a private, my roommate, we'll say Bobby Freeman, shout out to my boy, New Jersey Guard now, leader, commander, I'm
up until not too long ago,
I'm gonna let my boy go from like an 02 to, I don't know, like let's just make him 08. And
you're right.
put him in
until
charge.
Recently, there was no requirement. In fact, I think there's still 2 states that have no requirement for military experience before they get appointed to the adjutant general. I think they've still got that within their state constitution. Most of the others have a minimum requirement to be a lieutenant colonel, but you can go from a lieutenant colonel in most of those states to a 2-star general as appointed as the adjutant general. The deputies and the heads of the other ones, it's a different story.
That's very Custer. That's very Custer, as they would say. But but the point, you see what I did there, Troy? Yeah, all night. I'm still here. The point I'm trying to make is like there needs to be a qualification. And there needs to be the check and balance. And it's like, yes, you can have who you want serving for you, but at least have them in the field, in the realm. And I just remember like how they went at Betsy DeVos, and even though she had the experience and she had the understanding, they pushed back because they were like, it wasn't exactly the way they wanted. And like if you want to create jobs, like what's our maskless friend that likes to fly first class on the taxpayer's dollar? Carrie.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh, rice, rice wounder. Yeah, rice. Purple heart.
Yeah, that's right. Like contested Purple
He don't need
heart.
to wear a mask. He got the Purple Heart. I mean, he took some rice balls in the face.
But like you can just create jobs for people, like and that's what Trump did. Like Trump created jobs for his family, and like. Whether they got paid or they didn't, I'm assuming they didn't, but like that's what those are. But like cabinet positions, like you gotta have like an ounce. Like if you're gonna be in charge of HHS, Health and Human Services, you gotta have some kind of like experience there. If you're in charge of the VA, like this McDonough guy, he might be like the most charming chap. I don't know, but like it's like reading Colonel Grossman's book on killing and then finding out the dude's never been to combat. Now after that, he's written on combat and been to combat as a psychiatrist, in the green zone, but like if you start lecturing somebody on like how to like deal with yourself after you killed somebody and you have no idea what that is, like it immediately discounts you. Now, I think Colonel Grossman's written some great things. So like, this isn't a shot at him. I'm just using it as an example. Like if you're going to run the VA, man, you should have an understanding.
Especially during a pandemic.
Yeah.
Well,
when Eric Shinseki got tapped
of
with it, I was like, okay, guy, combat wounded. He understands the system. He's a member of the system.
I will say McDonough has one saving grace. He's got Dr. Rich Stone running the VHA part of it, who's been there for a long time, and was actually, considered to be the secretary at one point under Trump, but preferred to run the VHA part of it. He's got him here. He's got him there. Problem is, I guess Dr. Stone is leaving because they formed a committee to find the new head of the VHA. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of qualifications they come up with. Although one of the requirements by statute is that it must be a doctor. It can be a MD, was a psychiatrist or MDs, or a pharmacist type person, but it has to be a doctor in that role. So we'll see what kind of a person they find to fill Dr. Stone's shoes, which is going to be really difficult.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The VA was making amazing strides. Like I've never been more hopeful and optimistic about the largest and most bureaucratic institution as I was in the past 2 years. No, like just keeping it real.
And we're no longer an afterthought.
Right.
Yeah. And now it's like, I don't know. Like some of the people that are up in there, it's tough.
So can you guys hear me okay? My headphones are messing up. So I want to kind of pivot on another topic real quick. I want to pivot on this thing with, oh, wait, hold on. My microphone. Can you guys see it? Is it in the way? I don't know.
No, it's not in the way.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Yeah. I don't know. I had a little microphone,
Bush League,
microphone mishap there.
Anything that hides you like me is just fine, dude.
No, but see this microphone.
You have a little microphone?
I do have a little microphone. This microphone, as I pull it over, this microphone is really here, right? You notice that people watching notice I do blend in with the green with the brick backgrounds because I do have a green screen back there. I do have a green screen,
through it.
right? I can't reach through it, right? I can make my arm disappear or something. But to see this video that came out that from yesterday, and if you haven't seen it, please go look.
Bloomberg, right?
I know Bloomberg. I know Rob will put up in just a second. Where President Biden walks it because he's under a lot of criticism of he's not talking to the press. 55, 50. I don't know. Fox has a running tally. I think 56 days without a press briefing. But as going from what people consider the most transparent, open administration to the least transparent of all time, and getting a lot of ridicule, not from just, Newsmax, OAN, and Fox, but from all media outlets now that, they're making reporters pay for their own COVID test at $185 a pop. They're making them pay for their own to be at the White House, which means eliminate some of the smaller up-and-coming news agencies. And they're really limiting and controlling the media, not giving them access to the president, and he's not done any press briefings. So yesterday he walks, Marine One spinning in the background, walks up to the microphone, just talk about how he's not going to the border. And if you haven't seen it, a fifth grader with a Windows 95 laptop and a Betamax video camera could have done a better green screen, where he literally walks up and the microphone like goes around and stuff, and he cuts right through it. And it amazes me that for an administration or whoever's doing this, it doesn't take much to just preview that before you release it to realize that, hey, we probably need to clean that up or do a retake. But to have this come out where it looks like the microphones are green screened in, which means he's not really talking to the press, but also have nobody else that can refute it. We all saw those interviews when President Trump would, before he get on Marine One, there was every person had, usually they had camera crews behind them, but then they all had their iPhones out, also videoing because they were just feet away from the president. There were 55 million angles of him as he talked, right? There's no other view of this quick 5-second blurb from the president yesterday as he walked up. They're saying that's the only one we have, this one view, which you have bad green screen cameras being blended in. How does this administration think they're going to get?
I think they need to start borrowing the propropagandists from North Korea because those guys certainly do a better Photoshop job, or Iran.
Baghdad Bob had better. Baghdad Bob was in downtown Baghdad saying there's no Americans here as they were rolling behind him, and he had better green screen. Oh, thank you for putting that.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say I sent it over to Rob. I texted it to him to see if he could pump it up there. So we're talking about transparency, right?
And not transparency of the green screen either. Different transparency.
No, not the transparency of the green screen. No, the American people definitely want an opportunity to learn more about their president. They didn't. even though the dude's been in office like 40 bazillion years, we didn't get to learn much about him. We didn't get to see much about him as a candidate.
He didn't campaign, right?
He hasn't, made himself like very approachable. He hasn't made himself very available. He has a very interesting timeline during the day. He doesn't work the hours that previous administrations have worked. But like when people put this stuff up, it just like diminishes the faith and confidence we have in anything we see. Like he gave a speech the other day, and everyone in the world was led to believe that he gave it, from the White House in the evening of, was it last Wednesday or last Thursday night that he gave that speech? But like there's light under the curtains. Like clearly that was filmed at another time. Like there's editing of the video. Like,
you think they could have photoshopped whatever's on his nose. I don't know what that was, a fly or what that was. I don't know if it was the fly from the vice presidential debates, but there was something on his nose. I thought they would have cleaned that up. But
like, we want to like get to know him. We want to have him share his thoughts and views.
The next crisis,
and we're not getting it.
The next crisis is going to be the telltale signs of when you remember President Trump would go well into 2 or 3 hours when he was doing his briefings nightly in the early stages of this thing. He would go late. Yeah. We're not going to see that from Biden. If there is any kind of crisis, whether it's Iran, whether it's Russia, whether it's North Korea, or another virus pops up, and we're not going to see that happening with him in the evenings. It just won't.
Just to clarify real quick, two of those countries, one of those countries we threatened, and the other one we said their leader's a killer. Of those three countries you just mentioned, we've already started shit in the last 48 hours, probably. Yes. Right. Trump was going to get us into a war and Little Rocket Man and all that stuff, and yet we now have Secretary Austin telling North Korea that we're ready to fight you. Like we're ready to meet out behind the freaking band building at school.
Well, who is the real enemy? I think it was a question I saw posed today. Who is the real enemy of America today? Who is our military really preparing? I remember for us, growing up as Cold War, we knew exactly Fulda Gap, 38th parallel, whatever it is. We knew exactly what we were preparing for. There was no question in anybody's mind. Right now, we don't have an ISIS. We don't have an Al Qaeda. Thank
you, President Trump. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. So who's left? Who are we really preparing our military for? Oh, we're preparing them for the PowerPoint slides about what does racism mean? What does what constitutes that? Even though nobody will define it in DoD world, they won't bring up what they think their definition of this is.
Yeah,
but they'll lecture you about it.
They're worried about buffalo-headed, painted-faced QAnon and anyone that's listening to Leonard Skinner with a 3% sticker on the back of their truck and at the barracks parking lot. That's who they're worried about. Go ahead, Toby.
No, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, we knew who the enemy was. There's entire corps. CORPS, corps of within the U.S. military that are training ongoing and have been for theaters. And in those theaters that they're training for, there is a defined and studied enemy. Since this new administration, they just don't want to do that.
I wonder what the OP4 is at JRTC. I wonder what the OP4 is.
The Krasnovians, the Plywoodians, the great Atropia. Now, like I try to watch as much different news channels as I can, just to kind of like make sure that I'm getting a broad spectrum of stuff. And one of the things I got today from CNN was a full court press on explaining that the real enemy is Russia and not China. And that the last administration tried pulling the wool over our eyes by saying that China was our enemy. And, anytime like you see like that kind of full court press and they're like, oh, Russia's the real enemy. And all of a sudden, all these guys like Clapper and they, come out because now they're getting paid. And they're like, you're right. Like, I didn't have the courage to say it back then, but, like Russia's really our enemy. And, like they did interfere with our election. There's no doubt now. Like,
is that why the DNI report? Is that why the DNI report came out yesterday?
Say it now.
Yesterday, that DNI report came out saying that the DNI has a report saying that yes, Russia was trying to hurt Biden and help Trump. That came out yesterday. That must be the top reason why that timing happened. I didn't put that two and two together till you just said that.
But like, and here's the other thing: it's like you got a president that just made a pretty major diplomatic gaffe, right? Here's the guy that just went on this whole lecture, one of 3 speeches that he's given since being in office. One was from the State Department, how he said that he was going to make good relations with everybody. Like the very first day in office, he like pisses off like the nicest country in the world. Let's just go ahead and call it Canada. It might not just be the most scenically beautiful country, but it's also one of the most polite places on earth. And if they're not as polite as they want to be, they'll apologize to you for their lack of like total awesome like courtesy. But he like pisses them off, and then he like calls Putin a killer. Now, when Trump would like call out Putin on stuff like, how dare he, when he said Rocket Man, how dare he? Now it's like, well, let's get all the talking heads in here and let's back him up. Let's back him up. And make sure everyone understands like Russia's really our enemy. Let's justify it now for sure. Like it, when you see, the agendas being pushed, like I saw this news story, about the Atlanta shootings or the Georgia shootings, like the massage parlors, right? And I was like, oh man, like that's horrible. Like that's mass shooting. That's tragic. I hope they get to the bottom of that. And, then it's like police come out, give a press briefing. Yeah. Like this guy, like young dude, a little deranged, bit of a sexual addiction, kind of went over the edge, and this is how he responded to it. And he went into some places and he killed some people. And, like that wasn't like sympathy for the dude. That wasn't like, I just took it as like, what's the word we used to use? Candor. Just like, here's the information. I'm going to send it. You receive it. And then there's like full court like, well, let's talk about Asian hate crimes. Like they just built this agenda out of something that didn't happen.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
I talked about this,
and that's exactly it. Yeah. Never let a good crisis go to waste. It's like there really is racism against Asians. There's really racism against blacks. There's really racism against whites. There's really racism against Indians. And when I say Indians, I mean from like India and Pakistani, people like that's a real thing. But like that's not what this was. And
no, but it supports. I was talking to Dave on a show today about it. This supports because they're already spinning this, Toby, and saying that this whole Asian hate thing is coming because Trump called it the China virus. They are literally taking it back to Trump has fueled this anti-Asian race war because he calls it the China virus. Now, here's another.
I can tell you right now, Asians call it the China virus.
Right. Here's the thing, right? Here's how.
And if anybody comes back to me, you got to remember my kids are Asian, so don't even think about trying to accuse me of anything about there.
But so here's how dumb the media is and how disrespectful they are to the American public. We already know a lot of times they act like we're idiots and they say things and do things and they think we're just going to fall in line with it, right? The media is sitting there going, oh, someone's of Asian descent in a massage parlor, right? They could be Filipino, they could be Korean, Chinese, Japanese. I mean, any kind of South Pacific or whatever, right? They could be Indian from India. That's part of an Asian part of the country, right? But they wrap them all up in a China virus. It's because of China virus. Like, no, I think most people, they don't necessarily look at everyone Asian and go, you're Chinese. Most people in America, the culture has progressed enough.
I think that's racist right there.
Right. But I think most people progress enough, and we don't look at someone and go,
Vietnamese,
you're from China? No, we look at them and say, oh, what's your back? Oh, you're Thai. Oh, you're Vietnamese. You're Thai. No one just says, y'all are Chinese to me. No one does it. This isn't the freaking 40s.
Yeah, because they're like, China tried like taking over some of them countries, just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Like they're like Japan,
When we asked Japan just how biased they are against, ask the Vietnamese how biased they are against
Right.
China.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
or the Japanese, how biased they are against China.
just
Right.
just like this whole response, the way they're doing it, it's like it's the most racist shit ever. And I'm like, the racist hate crime that's happening isn't the guy going in there and shooting those people. That's a horrible crime, a tragedy. I'm not making light of it.
That's a crime of violence.
That's a crime of violence. But like, you want to talk about a crime of like ignorance and oppressive mentalities and ideology? You just perpetrated it by like insinuating like the comparison, of the China virus to the killing of Vietnamese people, Filipino people, Siamese, like Indian, like it's like, come on, like.
I said it today.
Woke.
I said
You're
it today
so
that
woke.
I said it today that if the iHeartRadio shootings in Las Vegas happened in the last year, I swear to God, the media would be saying, "Oh, we never got a motive, but it must have been the 9 Asian people that were in the crowd of 50 there. It was because of that. Because that guy was shooting up hundreds of people because he saw some Asian people and because China gave us the virus. That's what they would do today. And I'm not speculating. I'm telling you fact as if that event happened in the last year. That's exactly what would happen. I'm convinced to my core. They would spin it. Because they had nothing. We had no narrative there except guns are bad and bump stocks. It was bump stocks, right? Oh, we had something to blame. But if they didn't have that to blame, they would have spun it one way or another and tied it back to Trump.
Well, I mean, like, I'm afraid to talk about the coronavirus in certain ways because, like, if we can't say where it originated, right? Because that's racist. Like, there's new variants out there, right? So, like, there's a country. It's on the southern tip of a continent. We'll just say the continent's name is Africa. But there's a country at the very southern tip of it. If we said hypothetically, like there's a variant from that country, like would we not all be like, supporting apartheid?
Right.
Like,
right.
But yet
that's a South African virus. Yeah.
But everyone's calling it the South African variant. You're like, oh, you can't call it the China virus. You can't say it like originated from China. But you're like, well, the variants definitely came from Brazil. The variants definitely coming from like South Africa. It's the South African variant. Like, I want to say Dr. Fauci might even have brought that up in like the thing today when he was talking about variants. Like, oh.
Well, there's a French variant, right? There's a French variant. Remember, and early on there was a European
There's a French variant of kissing too.
Yes.
Like
yes.
One's more pleasure, yeah. Just saying.
Remember back about 12 months, not 10 months ago, there were 2 versions. They said everything that hit New York was the European version. Right. And the China version hit California. It was almost like they met up at the Rockies, like it was like Man from High Castle, like they couldn't cross over. So what was initially blamed last May, everything that was on the East Coast came from Europe. It was the European version. Right.
Well, that's because it was colonizing.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah.
It was just sweeping across. They're going to get back there. Okay, speaking of colonizing and that stuff, Wolf, I want to ask you personally, I haven't given a crap about the Brits since 1776, but I'm just curious, did you lose a lot of sleep in the last week? Did you have a lot of concern over the Meghan Markle interview and all the slander going against the royal? I mean, I'm not asking Toby because he did come from Canada, so I'm asking you first, Wolf. Did it give you a lot of stress? Did it raise the heart?
The stress that I got out of this whole episode was the fact that she may be running for president. This is what stresses me a great deal because it's just crazy. These people are making such a big to-do over this couple. That no longer have a royal title. And I just cannot believe the amount of attention that they pay to these people whatsoever. I mean, can you believe they had a GoFundMe to pay off their $10 million house? I mean, come on. I'd rather pay for some, random college kids school money than try and worry about
but you don't have to do that.
Some rich person's $10 million house.
But you don't have to do that because the Biden's about to wipe out $50,000 in school debt, which I'm really upset. I'm really upset I didn't take school loans out last year when my son went to college. I'm like really pissed that I didn't do that. But no, that's your good point. I mean, they made themselves look like victims as they sit on a $10 million house and who knows what else. And I think Bruce Jenner, yes, I called him Bruce, I think has a better chance of getting elected president than Meghan Markle. I think her 15 minutes is over.
Yeah.
Toby, for you, from the Queen's land or whatever you call it.
Yeah, no, like I'm going to speak on behalf of Her Majesty's subjects. So first and foremost, there's nothing more American than two exceptionally privileged rich people whining to a fellow elite billionaire about how hard their life is. And
He was
you
at
know,
least
like,
self-made. They were not.
yeah, and you know, like talking about, you know, like the expectations. Like one of the things that she said in the interview, like I almost like spit, you know, my my scotch out because you know, she was like, you know, I made the effort to learn the national anthem. Like you know, it's part of the immigration process to most countries. You're expected to learn their language and their national anthem. Like there's not much that they ask of you. In America, there's a, you know, a small examination that has some important information that you need to know about the government and such. I'm speaking from a little bit of experience, but like the national anthem's kind of in there. Like that's, and not only is it the national anthem, it's a song to your grandmother. You know, it's like it's a song literally hailing your grandmother, the family that the matriarch of the family you're marrying into. But no one really like loves in a time where like, you know, employment's down and we're in a bit, you know, where the economy's struggling, to hear about people how hard their life is, you know, in their like multi-million-dollar mansion and stuff. Their kid absolutely can be president. You know, so like look forward to him in like 30, what,
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
30, is he 1 year old? So he's got 36 to go. But one of the things that kind of bums me out though about the whole thing.
Real quick before you go to that part, I just want to inject one thing. I'm sure in the shitstorm of a house he's about to get raised up in, he probably is going to be nowhere near qualified to be president, because I'm sure he'll have a long list of social media photos and other controversies that will keep him from ever become president. Anyways, go on. I just want to put that.
Oh yeah, there's.
Are they going to allow
that.
him to pick? Are they going to allow him to pick their gender when he turns 5? Does he get to pick his gender?
Their pronouns will be they, them,
And Z.
but what I kind of want to get to is the royal family. Her Majesty has been in the spotlight, in the media, and under intense scrutiny since she was 16 years old. You know, she's been able to like maintain, you know, a relationship, you know, with her husband. You know, she's had offspring. She's been able to rear them, provide for education, you know, watch them go through military service, watch them get married. You know, there's been a couple of scandals in there when, you know, we look at, you know, Prince Charles, you know, abandoning Princess Diana so that he could go with his lifelong love of Camilla. You know, you saw his brother having a little problem with, you know, that redhead. He married a ginger, so he kind of was in it with Fergie for sure. But, you know, they endured some scandals. They've endured smut, and they've endured the intense scrutiny of the international media for decades. She's been under the intense scrutiny of the media since she was 16 years old, and she's in her 90s. And with all that intense scrutiny, she has overcome, and with class and with good poise, never lowered herself or had her character diminished or lowered, and not just out of like courtesy, but out of lack of evidence, because she's never demonstrated, and she's been under intense scrutiny. And then someone comes along that's in a, you know, already a failed marriage, questionable career, and then all of a sudden that person that has all those monikers and all that character and all that in their history openly, you know, accuses somebody of the same thing. Like, I'm having a hard time taking Meghan Markle serious on any of her commentary about things, because she was there a short period of time, and it just doesn't add up. Like, you can hide your character from somebody for a couple of years. You can hide your character from somebody for maybe a decade. But man, it comes out. Your name ends up on a manifest of a plane that goes to Sex Island. You know, like your name shows up. Like, these are real things that affected the royal family. Not just like politicians in the US. Like, your character comes out. In this day and age, you can't hide all those things. This isn't the time of JFK sliding someone in and out of the tunnels and banging them up, you know? Like, no, this is, she got up there on international television and she besmudged, you know, the crown. And it was like to try and make herself look the victim. And a couple of Americans were sympathetic. You know, she threw the whole suicide. I think old Harry, my boy Harry, I think he's in an abusive relationship. When she doesn't let the dude talk for himself and she alienates him from his family and she talks of suicide, those are all red flags. Anyone that, if you looked at that on any other person than those two, you'd be like, get out of that relationship. You're in an abusive relationship. She's toxic. She's controlling. You're going to end up dead. If you saw it in any other situation, but they're like, oh no, she was on Suits. Apparently that was a television show. And like, she besmudged the queen. She besmudged the royal family. She cast tremendous shade on it in a purely American way. And
in an exclusive interview, prime time.
Right. And like, in America, people are like, oh, you know, Piers Morgan at least had like the courage to like be like, nah, let's look at this at face value. Oh, how dare you, you racist. Now he's a jackwagon and I'm not a fan, but you know, I'll at least say that, you know, he did his job as a journalist, at least like say, let's look at it. And he, you know, didn't roll over on the monarchy. And, you know, like, they're like, well, let's cancel him because, you know, he disagrees with a girl that, you know, married a prince to become a princess and then is bitching about how hard her life as a princess was. Like, sorry that you never have to pick up a check. Sorry that you never have to pay a bill.
But look at it from this way. Can we look at something from here? Look at his life from his mother's standpoint. She was, you know, really put under intense scrutiny and stuff too, and she had a hard time adjusting. Do you think he sympathizes with his wife because of what his mother went through? Do you think that is anything that causes people to say, okay, well, you know, given what Diana went through, I guess Meghan will give her a break? Does that factor into the equation?
I'm not sure it does, because Diana, I don't think Diana's scrutiny, and I could be wrong, my memory may not be that tight, but Diana's scrutiny came after they separated. I don't think she was.
And she never besmudged.
Yeah.
Not once besmudged the crown.
I think she was.
She brought more credit to the crown after they separated than she did before.
I think she brought more popularity to the whole whole royal family because of just, you know, a lot of things. And she was very much loved by a lot of people around the world. And she also had selfless service. We saw what she did with the anti-mining effort and that kind of stuff. She did something to try to give back to this world, right? In the many years that she was a princess, not in the short time that Meghan Markle had been one. So, and I don't remember, Toby, maybe you do, or Wolf maybe do, but I don't think Diana had any controversy while her and Prince Charles were together. I think it was after.
No.
Right? It was,
and the controversy, she managed it very well. Like, she didn't do tell-alls, and she didn't do like, I'm gonna go, you know, like she didn't cast shade.
She upheld the dignity of the name of the family.
Right.
And when she needed time away from like the cameras, she went to Vietnam and Cambodia and led anti-demining operations.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like, and raised her children to like truly serve. Not just because you have a title, because you have the ability to do so. And, you know, like, and that's another reason why I think Harry's, you know, kind of in an abusive relationship. Yeah, he, you know, John, you're right. He's probably like, you know, channeling his mom. He's probably trying to like do right by his wife because he felt like maybe his mom got done wrong, and she did kind of get done wrong a little bit near the end for sure. But she didn't ever besmudge anybody.
I think somebody needs to send him there's a couple rap songs out there talking about bros before hoes. He's turned his back on his own brother, right? His own brother who suffered and lost his mom with him and grew up in that lifestyle they did. And he's essentially turned his back on him, all for her. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but it's probably going to be a made-for-TV drama before we know it, and I'm sure the people of England, if he wants to come back, I would imagine they would welcome him back with open arms to get their prince back, and they would still love him if he came back. I don't think they're going to write him off.
But I do have one question that kind of falls into the back end of this to help us transition to our last and final episode. Our last and final issue of the night. What visa is Harry here on? Like, just asking. Like, I'm just like curious what Harry's immigration status is in this country.
Accompanying his wife, who's a citizen.
Right. Like, so he's like applying for permanent residency. Like, obviously he's not on the fiance visa. Because so is he applying for residency?
Applying for a green card?
There's some issues. Like, he might be backing out of like just the royal duties, but when you apply for permanent residency, it's with the intent of immigrating to a country, which means he would be denouncing.
They live in Canada, right?
No, they live
in L.A.
Okay, LA.
Canada,
I thought that they moved to Canada.
They did. Canada threw them out.
Canada wouldn't. So the Canada wouldn't take them because of the arrangement between England and Canada on security.
Yeah.
So like, if they went to any one of the Commonwealth countries, the Commonwealth country that they would reside in became financially responsible for their security. And the security meant that they would have to bring, like the SAS team and all that stuff, like, to Canada. And the agreement, the status of forces agreement that Canada and the UK have doesn't allow for any kind of additional royal security except for official visits. No, not permanent party. And the Queen was like, yeah, well, we're not changing that. And old Boris is like, whatever the boss says. And, Trudeau's like, I am pissing off grandma, and like, so Canada, New Zealand, Australia, those all went out the window. So like, they had to come to her country. And so I'm like, what visa is our boy on?
Rob is saying the O1 visa. I don't know what an O1 visa is. Maybe you do, Toby.
And I'm like, is he going to overstay that visa? Because I'm a fan of immigration. Everyone knows like,
if he does, he just has to go south of the border and walk across.
He's like, I'm unaccompanied. They bring Archie. They put Archie at the border. You got to take him.
Yes.
now repatriate me with my child.
That's it. Yeah.
But don't put him in the housing in the Dallas Convention Center with the other boys.
Yeah, if you're working to work $1 million deals with Netflix and all this, you're going to move to LA, right? That they're going after the title and the fame. But yeah, hey, you went a lot longer. I know, Wolf. You were saying, hey, I can do a half hour. Obviously, we are $1:20 into tonight already because that's what happened last week too. And I think what happened you were on last time, we've just been running along. But is there anything we did not cover or talk about? Any topics that you wanted to highlight or you wanted to make sure that...
No, guys, it's always a joy. I really enjoy this. The time goes by so dang fast. Yeah. I pay no attention to it. I just roll with the punches and really do enjoy it a ton.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we you got us a great guest a couple weeks ago. You have another one lining up for us here in a few weeks. You've been feeding us just phenomenal people, but you are the Wolf. You are connected to a lot of folks, and I don't know if you listened to Dave's show today or not, but when I was on, he was promoting you heavy. I think for the first 5 minutes I was on, it was all about the Wolf and something about they'll send you into a building on fire and give you nothing but a spray bottle, and you'll put the whole thing out and save everyone inside. So,
oh man, you guys are awful, absolutely terrible. I'll get even with him for that. I promise you.
Yeah. Dave might be the best hype man. Everyone's like, you got to respect him, because he was awarded, the Medal of Honor, but like that, he's just the world's best hype man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if anyone's got skills the way he's got them.
Yeah.
They pale in comparison to his tactical prowess.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, he is definitely it. And I think, Toby, you're going to be on, are you coming on with me next week on Thursday? That's what Dave said today on air.
I believe so.
Okay.
Rumor has it.
Yeah.
His people have been talking to my people.
Yeah. Okay.
I've been like, his people have like not, allowed me to come on yet. And, like I was starting to get like worried. I was starting to think.
It must be the accent.
Yeah, I was like, don't let that Canadian, especially a Western Canadian, come on this show.
Well,
He's
Trudeau's
part of
kept
the infiltration.
Trudeau's kept the border locked down. They just extended it again to April 21st. So maybe he thought you couldn't come onto the show. But, once I explained that you've already made it across and you're here, then I think he was good to go. But yeah,
Trudeau's just like, Trudeau, like, we think we got it bad with Biden. Man, Trudeau, like that guy's the gift that keeps on giving. That dude's like, he's got so many scandals going on right now, but you'll never hear about it because like he's locked that country down.
CBC ain't
He's
talking
got that
about
country like, no, like he's like, you better shut up or you won't get a vaccine. Like, no, like they've administered like 7,000 vaccines. Like I'm in Williamson County. I think we did 7,000 vaccines today. Like the entire country of Canada's like, I don't even know if they've hit like 10,000 vaccines given yet. They're like, but he's like, he's got that place on lockdown. He's like, nope. Like
it's kind of like that one,
like
that F you, you're cool.
You're cool. Yeah. You get a vaccine. Nope. I hope it gets you. I hope it's in your lungs.
Well, nope. I don't know if you saw it today, but the one that starts with an A. I guess
AstraZeneca.
Yeah, the one that's like killing people and causing issues in Europe. Today, the U.S. announced that they're sending those to Mexico and Canada. They announced today, the administration, they're sending those vaccines to help out Mexico and Canada. I'm like, that's the one that Europe is saying we're not taking it anymore. Like, we're stopping the vaccination program because of this one. U.S.
While we're on vaccine, guys, I got something real good for you. I received my second Pfizer vaccine shot on Sunday morning.
How'd that go for you?
Courtesy of the VA. And it kicked my butt Monday morning. Sunday night, sometime during the night, I developed a fever and woke up Monday feeling like absolute trash, complete malaise. Everything ached. Wasn't nauseous or dizzy or anything like that, but just felt really, really bad. I would have felt better if I'd have been hungover, but it definitely wasn't that. And the first shot I had of the Pfizer, I had zero reaction whatsoever. And that was about 3 weeks ago. But this one, the second one, and when they were briefing us before we got the shot, they said, now, anecdotally, there are reports that the second shot has more effect than the first. So don't be surprised if you wake up, less healthy tomorrow, and you got to let us know. But that's exactly what happened. I woke up Monday and just stayed in bed the whole day.
Yeah, I've heard that not only from mutual friends of ours, but from coworkers of mine and people that have a lot of family back in India and everything else. Everyone is saying the same thing. It seems to be around the age of 55 to 60. If you're below that, the second one kicks your butt. If you're over that age, it has no effect at all. I don't know if they'll ever figure out why, but at least you got it. Here in Western New York, all veterans in Western New York can get the vaccine now, regardless of age. The VA here has said they have enough for everybody. So I'm just waiting for the one-shot one. When I was in Desert Storm, they gave us an anthrax shot that never recorded in my log, and it wasn't like that 3-part one they did in Afghanistan. It was one shot in the arm, line up in front of the Humvee. Tunes aren't telling you to take it, move out. And so I like the one-shot option. So I want that strong hit right up front.
You want the Johnson & Johnson one?
Yeah.
I think Texas is transitioning, to giving you the option now to get the one shot, the one hit a quitta. But as Boston Maggie would say, the one hit a quitta on the Twitter. But no, when we get the flu shots and we'd get those other shots, whatever they were, I'd always like the next day not be 100%. So I kind of feel like that's par for the course, right? And like to be expected a little bit. I mean, they are giving you something, so
I don't think they're giving you a live virus though, like they do with the flu shot. I don't think it's. No,
it's just like the monikers, right? It's just like the RNA monikers.
It's the markers. Yep. It's the markers. Yep.
Yeah.
So, but what I look forward to, if you want to get it, if you don't. But I just look forward to, getting back to normal and, like the good doctor that represents the state of Kentucky said today, like, if we get to a level of immunity, like let's get on with our lives. Let's get rid of masks and, get on with our lives. And, no greater incentive can be found than be like, you want your life to get back to normal. You want to get back to normal, get this shot.
Yeah.
Hammer it out. I
I
think that's
encourage
one of the
everybody to
things.
go get it. I mean, yeah, I had a little bit of reaction, but not everybody does. I encourage everybody to get it over the age of, say, 20. I don't think the effects of some of the younger folks are that serious. I take it that there are folks that do have it. I'm sorry for them, and I don't want to wish it on anybody. But please go get it. If you have an opportunity to get the vaccine, go get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm ready for that to get back to normal. I'm ready to come down to DC and see some good friends down there like Wolf and Jimbo and many, and I'm ready to definitely get down to the Southern Studio. I got to bring Toby some venison jerky, and we have to get in the man zone there. So
I love it when your meat's in my mouth, man. You got the best jerky.
And with that, we are going to close out. Wish everyone a good night. Stay on for a second. Wolf, everyone, please join us next Thursday here on Stew and Nunn. I think it's going to be 8. I don't know, Toby, haven't even I talked. We'll see. I guess it will be if the president's talking during the middle of the day. It'll probably give us enough stuff to talk about that night. So tune in next Thursday here, 8 o'clock Eastern, Stew and Nunn. Wish everyone well. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we bid you all a good night. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stew and Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.